Hi there, I am Carol Brose, a recently retired 4th through 8th grade music teacher. Early in my career, I felt music education should be the study of music. I quickly realized that not only were my students not learning, but my passion for music was missing. Many of the band, orchestra, and students who were involved in private music lessons were completely bored. I moved into a create mode, not a study mode. When students were allowed to create and make music, they learned more about how music worked. Plus, the students became a community within the class, and the students' individual passions were allowed to come with the musical experience. In 2004, a MIDI lab was installed with headsets, so students were able to personalize their experiences as well as share with each other. I no longer was the director on the podium, but the students moved at a quicker pace and learned to create and compose music much faster in this new method. They loved to share their compositions, and a new culture was born with this individualized instruction. I could enable every student to be engaged and demand more from each individual student. Rigor was now the important aspect of my class, and it gave birth to innovation. So let's get ripped. You will hear from students how rigor, innovation, and passion are the backbone of creating and learning.
I'm Sasha, and my passion is theater. I love performing because I get so exhilarated when I'm in front of a crowd. It's so fun, and it's what I love to do. Last year, at Flex Time, I made a video to whip my hair. I thought it was perfect. I worked on it for 2 weeks, thought it was awesome, and looked it over, and it wasn't so good. So I took it, and I deleted all of it and restarted. That's how I rigored myself. I don't want to just put slop up there. I want to try my hardest and be the best that I can be. I innovate all the time. I've done many projects in music, and I saw Mrs. Brose during Flex, and all of my projects had musical theater involved in it. And my composer project, I wrote a song and performed it, and I've done many music videos.
My journey of music education is not a simple or a normal one. I was never the most talented student in the class, or the student with the highest grade point average. I never had a lead in a show, and I was never the main soloist. Actually, I consider myself average, the average student sitting in the average classroom. I was compliant, and I did what I was told. But when I could create or invent something, that's when I came to life. However, there were limited times in my education that I was allowed to create. No one ever demanded me to create. They just demanded compliance. I also found that I was teaching to the middle. That meant I wasn't really teaching to any of my students. 4 years ago, I completely revamped the music curriculum to include a spectacular project, sort of fashioned after Randy Pausch's The Last Lecture. The students were allowed to create using any skills, programs, and use their passion. Music had to be part of the project. Well, it's a music class. Given the individualization of the project, I could not have a rubric. I had so many students doing so many different things, I'd have 50 different rubrics. Plus, with a rubric, my talented and gifted students quickly figured out how to do the minimum to get the A. I used a line that Randy Pausch used with my students when they would ask me about their project, and I would say, "Not enough," pushing them harder and harder. By teaching to the gifted and talented students, 2 things happened. First, all my students were working on their individual project at a rapid pace. And second, the culture was excellence, not being average and not being compliant. The biggest gift that I have given my students was time. Yes, there were deadlines, but deadlines always could be moved. I would say, I have a magic wand. Finishing a project that they were proud of and realized was much more important than making a deadline. So, if the student really wasn't finished with the project and the rest of the class was, I allowed the student to skip the next project and finish up. Conversely, if a student finished early, they were allowed to play or work on something that they have always wanted to work on. I am a Google certified teacher and incorporated the Google 20% within the class. This means 20% of class time was for discovery and to create, or basically an open lab. Yes, there were rules that were in the open lab. You couldn't just do whatever you wanted, but they knew what was expected. However, there were students that would ask, "Can I do this? Can I do that?" If it was reasonable, it was approved on the spot. Out of the 20% time came the most amazing projects and collaborations. It allowed my students to innovate and create. I want and demand spectacular projects. Meeting deadlines is important, but creating something that is beautiful is far more important. Being an artist takes time. The moment I stepped into my own classroom, it happened. I went from average to innovative. I also told myself that the basis of all my lessons would be to allow my students to have a voice, to have their own voice. So every year I empowered my students to create and innovate. My students amazed me at the level of innovative, creative projects that were created. I taught musical composition and didn't compose myself until I was 48. Now I compose daily, and I teach composition to non-musicians all the way up to gifted composers. My students lived in a world of create, not in a world of compliance. I championed the students who took the risks and let their voice be heard. So, how did I run my classroom? Ironically, I started out with heavily compliant rules. Left brain day and right brain days. Whenever we started a new program or project on the computer, it was left brain day. On left brain day, every student had to click together. If one person was behind, other students would have to jump in and help. This created a community by making students help each other. It took me off the podium. It allowed other students to take charge and teach. It empowered and created leadership. The reason was twofold. First, I would never have to reteach a lesson. That puts a speed bump in the lesson. The less speed bumps, the more students are on their own. I started with the basics and assumed the students knew nothing. Once the students knew what was expected and they were working on their project, it allowed me to mentor the students that wanted to step up. That was the second reason. I was always looking at other ways to involve students in sharing, whether it was on the web or at various conferences. The idea of giving back and showing others was always a common thread within the classroom. You can't be an island. It is important that talented students spend time with each other at least once a week. So I started a tech club once a week at 7:15 in the morning. It was by invitation only. I never put signs up, and I never discussed it in class. You had to be willing to show and help others. Soon students would ask if they could attend. Of course, anyone was allowed to attend, but if they were not willing to share and learn, they quickly stopped coming. I soon had over 25 students knocking on my window to come in at 7:15. So let's hear from some amazing students that know how to rip it up. What's something that you're just very passionate about?
I love aviation. I love every aspect of it.
How'd you get involved in aviation?
I don't know, I've really been interested in it since I was less than 3 years old. I have a picture when I was about 3 years old in the cockpit of a Boeing 737 wearing the captain's hat.
See, I didn't know that. So when we came into 5th grade and we did work on our project, you get to work on a spectacular project. We tried to incorporate this into your spectacular project because that's your passion.
Yes.
So what did you decide to do for your spectacular?
I decided that I wanted to make a website for podcasting on airplanes.
Oh, and so what was the podcast about?
The podcasts were on different planes. Each podcast was for a different plane.
Oh, so you had to do some research to figure out what the planes were, and then
Yes.
you put music to it, and then you put a whole website together and watch an URL. Right?
Yes.
So 5th grade was that was an amazing project that you did. So then when we got into 6th grade, we wanted to sort of ramp it up, and all of a sudden we're working on our spectacular projects, and I noticed that you hadn't done anything. I was like, Josh, you got to do something here. You did a great job this year in 5th grade. Now we're in 6th. We got to ramp it up. And why weren't you working on stuff?
Well, that's because I was helping you.
You were helping me. So explain how the class works, because I think people think that I stand up in front and I talk.
No. For the spectacular project, everyone chooses what they want to do, so you can do a movie, stop motion, podcast, website, anything really. So Miss Gross is a little overworked, I might say. So she always has people from the class help her.
Right. And so it got to the point where you were running around helping people, do this, do that, do this, and all of a sudden you realized you weren't even working on your project.
Yes.
So I came to you and I said, well, you got to do something, because I got to give you a big award. In order to get a big award,
You have to do something.
Right, you got to ramp something up. So what did you do? Within a period of 3 days?
In a period of 3 days, I made about 6 podcasts to add to my website.
Right, and you had to do all the research and everything. You got it all done so that you could go back and help the other people, because I needed help, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that has the idea of we have the passion and we have the rigor ramping it up. But the real thing I want to talk about too is innovation. I think that's something that we talk a lot about in class, trying to do something that no one's ever done before, right?
Yes.
And don't you feel that thing? Now I know we've done we've gone to a couple of different places. We've done the SIT conference stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the conferences and what that's done for you to be innovative. Well, first we'll talk about SIT, because that was really exciting. We did that for the past 2 years. What is the SIT conference?
SIT stands for Students Involved with Technology.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a great conference, one of my favorite conferences, because you're actually there with other students. You're there to learn what other people your age know that you can do.
Yeah, and what's sort of cool is you get to choose, right? I don't assign you where you go, right? You get to choose where you want to see, and you look at new stuff, and and you also get to present.
Yes.
And I think you presented your podcasting there.
Yes.
The other one is the ICE conference, which is Illinois Computing Educators. Let's talk a little bit about the ICE conference. Now, you went all the way back in 4th grade. I mean,
Yes.
So you've gone for many years.
I was the only 4th grader back when I was in 4th grade.
And what are some of the things that you saw that made you, when you went there, that sparked your interest in your innovation to move ahead in different things?
Well, ICE is by far my favorite conference of the year, and I loved it there. I saw so many techie teachers and people, so it really kind of gave me some ideas for what I could start doing.
Right. So now what are you working on now? What are some things that you're looking forward in the future that you would like to experiment with or move on to?
Maybe start making some movies. I definitely want to keep adding to my website for podcasting.
Okay, so you want to continue on. Because sometimes you can just stop there and move on to something else. But I think you like the idea that you're building on something and ramping it up.
Yeah.
We'll talk about passion first. So what are some of the things that you're passionate about that you really love?
I really like soccer. I'm very drawn to that.
Okay.
I really like tech.
Oh, you like tech too? Yeah, you're one of my techie girls.
Yeah. I like reading.
Mm-hmm. And you like to do, this is one of my things I think, you like to do stuff that you don't know how to do.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now, one of the things that you just love is when you see something new, it doesn't scare you at all. If anything, it gets you excited because you want to learn how to work it.
Of course.
Right. And now innovation. Tell me about some of the innovative things that you did last year, because I know you did a lot of really cool innovative things. So talk a little bit about what you did.
Well, Miss Bro, she took me on a field trip, and we went to 2 places.
Yeah.
We went to SIT conference and ICE conference. They were really cool conferences. And I presented
At both?
an iMovie.
Yes.
At both.
And what was your iMovie about?
It was my friend Abigail, who was a year older. She made flowers on a
Sumo paint, right?
sumo paint, right?
And we did it on the
Promethean.
Well, that was. I remember you guys doing it. It was like the pre-thing board. You had this. You just loved coming in Friday mornings and just painting and doing everything. And you made tons and tons of flowers, right?
And so finally, we decided to put it together and take those flowers and put it into an iMovie and connect it with GarageBand.
Right.
It was
Never
really
been
cool.
done before.
It was awesome.
Yeah, never been done before. And now, why is rigor so important in making something so much better when you not settling for things? Why is it important to you?
Well, I think when you make something better or you try to do something, I think it's really fun because when if you stay to the same thing, it's going to be boring after a while. So you have to really step it up, do something new.
All the time.
All the time.
Right. It doesn't. You don't just stay in one place.
Like currently, I'm working on Flash, which I've never used before.
Yes.
And I've been working on it for 2 days now. I'm trying to figure out. We keep forgetting how to make new slides, and it's not really working, but it's fun.
Right, and you're still working at it, right?
Yeah.
You got to push
I'm not
yourself.
going to give up.
No, you're not going to give up. Okay. So what happens in the classroom when I can't be there? What happens?
We take control.
We're
like the kings.
We're like the kings. You guys are. I mean, I'm running around trying to help other people, and you have to help people too. I mean, sometimes you don't get enough of your own work done because
We're
you're helping other people. But that's sort of how it is. The class is sort of humming all together as one. What about the rigor, about pushing yourself farther? I think that's one of the things that I think that I kept pushing you and pushing you to see if you were going to slow down, and you never slowed down. You were always going, I thought, oh, do this a little bit more. Okay, and you go off and you do even more. So talk a little bit about pushing yourself ahead.
Okay, well, I had no idea what SketchUp was, and Mrs. Rose is like, here, you should try this program, and I had no idea what it was. So then I went in, clicked it, and after about 3 days, I taught myself completely how to use it.
And then we also looked at Flash and stuff, and I said, I have no idea how to do this, right? And basically, guess what? You're going to have to push yourself through, right?
Yep.
Push yourself through, and that's how we've done it. You also do a lot of music stuff. I mean, talk a little bit about your music background and what you've done in that.
Well, what I did was I made a podcast that I named Blue. And I did this at like the beginning of the year. And what happened is I took a bunch of pictures around the school of things that were blue. And so then I put them into a podcast and wrote music that kind of made me feel like the color blue.
Right. And that was a big hit. I mean, people love that. And that helped other people to come up with some other ideas to be innovative and creative. Right.
My passion is technology.
It is technology, I know. You always are looking at new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you're always trying to be innovative, too. Trying to find something that, like...
It's new and that no one knows about, and then you can explain it to everyone, because that's the whole fun about it.
Yeah, you can explain to everyone.
Yeah.
And also within the classroom, one of the biggest things that I try to really promote is that people help each other.
Oh, that's a big one.
Right, because you also want to see what other people are doing.
Right.
You know, and that's...
Maybe you'll get a good idea from them.
Right, and that's why we have the computer sort of like in the center there, so that you can see other people's screens, because it's all about sharing and knowing good stuff. Now, what are the stuff, I know you do some online learning. What are some things that you have learned from online learning? Because I know at night you try to look at, what did you go to forums?
Yeah, forums, and I look at, I just Google something, let's say, a good program for making movies, all right? And I was just looking at this thing, there's this, well, it's not new, but there's this excellent video editing system at Sony Vegas. Great video. I actually used the demo for it, and I'm thinking of getting it. It's very...
Okay, so that's what you're trying to look at, stuff like that. So, you know, that type of thing. Now, other thing that we have going on is a rigor. I don't let the talented and gifted kid just sit
Right.
If anything, those kids that know more, I expect a lot. I do. You can't just do one little project.
You can't just...
No.
Right.
You've
50%. It has to be 110.
Right, 110. I want you to work harder, work faster, and help other people out. So so when you walk in my class, and of course people really don't walk in class.
Right, they run. They're like,
right, because I don't call it, we have to work.
Right.
I don't say homework, I don't say, you know, this is a worksheet, we don't have worksheets. We don't do anything, but it's all about work.
Right, and you tell us, you give us the materials and we do it ourselves. You don't say, all right, you have to do this verse and you have to do this and this and this and this.
Right, I do not give step by step. I do like 5 or 6 minutes in the beginning just to show what's going on, and then you get working. And once you're working on your project, I don't even do that. You go in, you sit down, and you start working.
Right.
So, exactly, because sometimes I don't even know how to run the program myself. I mean, the case in point, I remember it was a couple of years ago when we were trying to run Flash together.
Yeah.
And I remember we sat together trying to get a ball to bounce,
Right.
wasn't it? And we sat there and we were not, remember that?
You were not going to give up, and I
You're
was like,
not going to give up.
yeah.
And you were just like, oh, Mrs. Brooks. I said, no! Remember? I said, we
Yeah.
have to figure this
We
out.
have to
And
figure it
it
out.
took us almost 40 minutes and we
Right.
got it going. And now you do tons of Flash stuff. And remember, we look back on that, those days, when you were trying to do that, and you were
Yeah,
like,
you're like, wait, what? You're like,
yeah. So, and I think it's the empowerment. It's empowering you to learn yourself, and also once you do that, it becomes almost like exciting to be able to keep doing that, right? Because then you can keep learning yourself,
Right.
so you don't feel like you have to come to me for everything.
I've actually started to develop an iPod Touch game in Flash.
Oh, okay.
CS3. Yeah, I haven't got the updated version yet. But
Okay.
I'm hoping of getting CS3.
Okay, so
when it comes out.
and you want to make sure that it has all that
Right,
together.
right.
And of course, in all our projects, we got to have the
First name and last initial.
Yeah, that's initial. We're good at that. And then we're also into music. We want to make
Right.
sure that we have good,
Oh, yeah.
and all of our music is original.
Right. Oh, original. No. 30-second.
No, stuff that we use from someone else.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks. It's so nice talking to you,
You
Connie.
too.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm in 7th grade and I compose music. Part of the reason that I, compose is because I really enjoy doing it. It seems that what you're really good at sometimes seems to what you enjoy doing. And if you don't enjoy doing something, then you're not going to want to spend all the time you can have doing the one thing you really love to do. For me, this is, composing music, making movies, do all kinds of that kind of stuff in that area. So part of the reason that I really love composing is because it's something new. It's not like, when you are playing piano and, you have to read the music that other people have done, and I like doing that too, but I really think that the most fun thing to do is to create your own stuff. And same thing with making movies, I mean, sure, watching movies is great fun, but I actually like more making a movie because, it's my own thing that I've done. And I also, I really think that when you do something like someone else's, it doesn't really feel as, you don't really feel like, wow, that's really cool. But if you do something that's your own, that's half the fun of doing it. What I really, really want to talk about is rigor, or, pushing yourself to do something. Because if, let's say, if you want to really, really do something, and, I'm going to go back to my example of piano, okay? So, let's say you really, 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 you want to be really good at piano. But, if you don't play the hard pieces that it'll take for you to become really good, if you just play easy piece, easy piece, easy piece, easy piece, and play a bunch of easy pieces, you're not going to get any better, no matter how much you practice, because the stuff you can already do. But if you really push yourself and keep getting better, that's what can make you be really good at something. And once you make one thing, you always want to make the next thing better. Then you want to make the next thing even better than that. So that's the main part of composing, making a video, doing pretty much whatever. Okay, so what I'm working on now is I'm doing a bigger movie, 30 minutes instead of 5 minutes. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because, my last video, it was a 5-minute long, and it was a lot better than all my others, but because, I want to always get better, I'm progressing and going 30 minutes instead of 5 minutes, and maybe I'll even get longer after that.
I wanted my students, no matter how bad it was in school, to open the door to the music room and walk into a garden of possibilities. What you have heard from these students is through the process of involving music through using their passion, technology was used. Music was the glue that brought it all together. Having the focal point of music pushed them to create and innovate more. It will be exciting to see where these students are in 1, 5, or 10 years. These are not the compliant students sitting quietly in class. These are the students who question and demand that you allow them to create and innovate. The future? If I am to demand rigor, innovation, and passion, then I should expect the same from myself. I am constantly looking at new avenues to push music education and technology forward. I demanded a lot from my students. But what was my greatest joy? By watching them take the steering wheel of the jet plane and me sitting as the passenger.